Hey,
Hey, when?
let me get my volume here.
So is this your first Facebook Live interview?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, cool. No, it's actually interesting. I talked with someone else the other night, and it was the first time using Facebook Live, this function.
Yeah,
And I really think this is where technology is going.
it's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing how easy it is just to use your phone to do this.
And like, and
So,
yeah.
no, go ahead.
No, I wasn't 100% sure how it worked, but it's very easy,
Yeah,
and so it's exciting.
very, yeah, yeah, it's really interesting. So, excuse me. We had several little discussions about what we might discuss today. And what I've learned over time is I really like to let presenters just speak about whatever their bliss is, whatever it is they're trying to share with their friends, family, loved ones, potential clients, students. So, what do you want to talk about?
Well, I can tell you a little bit about kind of where I am right now and what I've been
Yeah,
thinking about, and what I'm excited about sharing. Um, you know, both you and I are students of Eric Schiffman,
yeah,
and such a big part of what I've learned with him is just like my own personal experience of yoga
hmm,
and developing that for myself and how satisfying it is. And I really want to help guide people to have that experience for themselves.
yeah,
And what I've been finding in the last couple of years working in kind of more group fitness styled classes is it's very difficult to do that when it is a very inconsistent group of students to have a continuity over time. And the more expertise that I've developed as a teacher, the more specialized I want to be about how I deliver that knowledge. And
yeah.
so, I've kind of like gotten out of that scene and I'm in like exploration mode of what is a better way to connect with people and share what I have to offer.
Yeah. Oh, the connection between with Schiffman, you and I, that was how we initially met.
Right.
And what I can tell you is, Eric cracks me up because he's the only yoga teacher I've studied with that is on my teacher's wall. I have a picture of him. And then he's also the only yoga teacher who's never really taught me a yoga pose.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just such an interesting concept because over the years, I mean, I guess now, how long has it been? 13? It's been 13 or so years that I've been doing yoga.
Hmm.
And I got into it for very physical reasons and then very quickly started to shift things where it was like there was this other spiritual stuff going on. And then Eric came right in the middle and like broke it open as a Westerner. When I went, oh yeah, the revelation was like somebody else that had the same experience, not that it was
Hmm.
something new and innovative. Does that make sense?
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And my experience of yoga has always been like the experience part of it and the poses are secondary, but
Yeah.
everybody comes in like pose first, and it's a funny thing. It's a funny thing to navigate for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I work with a guy here in Austin, and we started because he saw me at a facility I worked at doing Thai massage at the time. And then after I worked on him, I said, listen, Javier, you're really just having problems from sitting too much. You need to start taking hatha yoga classes. And I didn't see him for like 9 months. And he comes in one day and he actually went out and started taking yoga classes. And he's like, oh my God, it changed my entire life. My whole world is better. And then I'm like, so what's going on? And I work on him and he's like, I'm like having problems. And I'm like, well, what's going on? And he's like, well, I'm Catholic. And it's like, so your physical yoga practice is now affecting your spirituality and it's causing, dysfunction. And I'm like, no, no, it's not. The thing that I liked as a Westerner was yoga gave me a physical handle on essentially what's meditation.
Yeah.
And that was something that was hard for me to crack through because I come from a very material, intellectual culture. It's very like scientific rigidity.
Mm-hmm.
And the practice gave me a handle, but then once you start working on that, you access other components, which I find, to be interesting. I don't hear that from Pilates.
Right.
Pilates changed all my spirituality, but yoga is always the one that does that.
Yeah, yeah.
So I had an interesting conversation on a massage group that I'll share this video in. And a young lady who's a massage therapist asked me if it was just the weirdest question to me that I would never think about. But she said, if you're doing belly dance or like movement arts and massage, that was her question. How do you let people know that you're not doing like tantric or sex work? And I went, what is wrong with the culture? I am fundamentally confused about things I see every day regarding massage. So I don't know. Like for you, for instance, like I haven't taken classes with you. How are you blending elements of belly dance and yoga?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't bring any belly dance into my yoga classes.
Yeah.
However, I do teach yoga to my belly dancers because in the last couple years I've been studying Vinyasa pretty intensely, and structurally that practice is the absolute best for belly dancers. So it's in that style of yoga, it's using a lot of the biomechanics of the breath to help move the spine, and that kind of work really helps with like all of the structural stuff around the low back and hips that becomes problematic for belly dancers due to all the repetition of stuff that we do in that area. So but it's very like that part of it is like very very structured, so they really are mostly two separate things. Although like in my personal practice, I think the structural part of yoga has been really helpful for dance, but also the more like subtle and like esoteric kind of stuff of like being really connected and inspired with something with big mind, as Eric would say, like being more connected with that can be really powerful for dance. But like practically speaking, it's really like the structural stuff that I teach to my dancers.
I go back and forth. There's so much between like massage and body work. That's what I've dealt with, or massage and yoga, I should say. And what I noticed over time was when I talked to the yoga community, they were confused about the massage. And when I talked to the massage community, they were confused about the yoga. And I was living in the middle. And I'm like, what do you mean? It's the same thing. Like you're working on the same body.
Right.
Trying to get massage therapists, for instance, they have a tendency to think in terms of musculoskeletal anatomy. And it's like, Flissy, if I give you a session, I'm working on you.
Right.
I'm not a collection of muscles. And that's what's so hard, because you have to get them to feel, not think. It's like when Eric would talk about like a Iyengar alignment, and you could tell Iyengar was a bit more rational in a way, very like exacting specificity about how things would be. And then Eric would say, oh, no, you're just feeling. You're
right.
It's like that line there that I keep going back and forth, because with the students, they're looking for a theoretical application in regards to musculoskeletal anatomy. And I keep going, well, this is cool, but why do we feel? This is what makes the sessions better. This is what allows me to connect with Flissy. This is what allows me to get her to relax and unwind and release all that musculoskeletal anatomy.
That's really interesting to me. So I feel like in the like there is a movement in the yoga realm as well towards like safety in terms of like functional anatomy stuff. Like that is like a really big thing. I don't know how it is with massage that I mean, obviously like what you're saying is like so much of massage is like that hard anatomy stuff and musculoskeletal stuff, but it seems like massage therapists could benefit so much with like working a little bit more intuitively with people and building like an actual relationship with their client.
There's just so much complexity. I think that you could talk in more detail about the yoga community than I can, but I've been entrenched with massage therapists that I'm perpetually confused by. And I keep trying to understand their perspective to be able to communicate and convey information as a teacher effectively. But there's something about, I think, Western rational intellectual reductionism that only goes so far for me personally. In the end, even regardless of Iyengar's alignment, I'm always going to do the pose in the way that it feels best to me.
Right.
Yeah. But there's a thing with like massage therapists. So say you're a massage therapist, you go to school, the therapist is taught a sequence. Long, flowing strokes, Swedish sequence, you know, a deep tissue sequence. And trying to get students out of that sequence is very challenging. They either work at it for years and just break it down, or they're still performing that same sequence 5 years later. And it's like the client actually knows what's coming next because they're performing that sequence. It becomes like Ashtanga Vinyasa. And I just never really practiced that way. For me, it was like, well, my arm hurts. Okay, well, what about ooh, right there? That became my sort of Iyengar alignment, if you will. But having my own physical challenges, it was easier for me to feel my way through things and then have a better understanding of how that was going to influence potential clients.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like, how do you think that, what your experience of that is, like, how are you sharing that with massage therapists? Like, what are you doing to help massage therapists be better at their job?
As far as in-person classes or online?
Both.
The only thing I can do as a teacher is share all of my flaws and foibles. Which means I have an increasing degree of like authenticity with my students, where I really intellectually like butt up against those concepts to help break them open. And what you find is it's almost like you're just scattering seeds and allowing it to grow where it grows, trying to get rid of expectation for them to get it. In other words, instead of trying to convert people to my way of thinking, I'm trying to find the people who already think the way I do.
Yeah. And I feel like, at least within yoga realm, it can be difficult because it seems like, you know, the group think of whatever that is like so pervasive that it can be hard to like dig through that to find the people that are on the same track as you. But like I know like those people are out there, but they're not necessarily like, you know,
the majority.
They're not in the mainstream.
You know, as far as content, I produce more video-based content than any other educator in the massage industry that I know of, both for social media and for pay. Like we have a subscription service that has over like 75 hours of video instructional content. It's gotten to the point where I'm just recording all of my classes and uploading it and going here, again and again and again and again. What I noticed when I was producing curriculum, I don't know if you've seen all of it, Flissy, but I made like a series of workbooks and DVDs.
Yeah, I have one of your workbooks.
And the students, as they would go along, they kept going, I don't understand. It keeps changing. And I was like, guys, like Picasso had a blue period, but he had a career that was 30 years long.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's the thing. It's like I'm just documenting the process. And when I couldn't keep up with like workbook and DVD production, we just moved towards the subscription service where I'm just recording almost everything and documenting that process. One, body work is a little bit more difficult to scale in the sense that for you to understand what I'm doing in session, you'd have to receive a session, which means I cannot work on you from the East Coast.
That's too bad.
Two, I could do this, which is have constant ongoing social media content and production and allow the students to just follow along until they make it into a physical class.
Right.
So they start off thinking, okay, he's teaching body work. And then they're on the subscription service and they're like, wait a second, he's teaching a yoga class to the body workers. And then he's putting these body workers on props and working with them while they're in yoga props. And then he's teaching breathing exercise. What is he doing? And I'm like, guys, yoga and massage are not separate practices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's really like, I'm really impressed by what you're doing, because I've had lots of massage over the years, and the lifespan for so many massage therapists is like, that career is really short for a lot of people, because they're not taking very good care of themselves and the work that they're doing. And it seems like the kind of work that you're doing is really sustainable, and you can really help other body workers.
The way that I looked at what I did, so I started as a massage therapist. I went into this little box in massage school, but it only helped me so much with my own pain and the stuff I'd had from the drunk driver I was hit by. So yoga was the first thing that I found, other than massage, that really helped. And when I was kind of teetering back and forth across these, they started to influence each other. And when I discovered Iyengar, it was from going to the library, and I found Light on Yoga, and I was just flipping through the, you're amazed at the photos. Oh my God, look at what he's doing with his body.
Right.
Yeah. But what really blew me away was when you got to the back of the book and he said, hey, if you have shoulder problems, do these poses. If you have digestive problems, do these poses. And I was like, oh my God. But the real proof was in the pudding. If you looked at the course of Iyengar's life, I think he lived to be 96. If you look at the course of his life, he didn't stop refining what he was doing. His own body was the art form. The whole thing was that trope of Asian mastery. The old master, Yoda, right? That trope does not exist within the massage community in the West. And that's really what I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to see, is it possible to create a form of bodywork that blends the best of these traditions and creates longevity?
Mm-hmm.
Helps create a new class of like body workers who are not only helping people, but maintaining their own health and longevity in having also lucrative careers, like something that's sustainable.
Yeah. And that's a huge problem in the yoga world as well. There's so many of these like vinyasa teachers that are getting injured from so much of their repetitive work. And I feel like we're still kind of in this place where that is, like, people are hiding it. Like, there are teachers that are hiding their hip replacements and shoulder surgeries and all that stuff. And there's still like this cloak that certain kinds of yoga practices are always good for you forever. And that's not the case. No. It's going to be like, it's always going to be constantly evolving according to your condition and your needs and your age and everything. And like, it's just, I think we're just now starting to, like, as a community, starting to get to that place where we can change the narrative about that, where that we can start to really get practices for people for what they need at the time. And that, like, but like, that is always what it's been about. It's like the yoga has always been tools for you to feel better. But I think that somewhere we got off track, and it was just this show.
It's the battle between East and West. I just saw Star Wars the other day, and that's why I brought up yoga. It's like the retelling of myth. Star Wars, yoga, everything. One of the things that I find unsettling after a while is I had an injury to my knee, or a part of my hip, from sitting in lotus. And as a Westerner, I think the problem I've had both in business and in my practice is I strive too much. I don't take proper self-care and take time off. I'm pushing, because it's like you got to achieve enlightenment. You right? Like, you have a very limited time. You have to,
you
push
sit
forward.
in lotus for that,
Oh, exactly. You can, And the whole thing is when it happened, it was very much a fluke. It wasn't like I didn't feel like I was forcing anything. But when something was injured, it was like, hey, what's all the point here? Like, what are we really trying to do? Because you don't want to have pain for years because you did a pose and had something happen. But at the same time, there's this thing where how do you strive and continue working, but also accept where you are? There's this sort of duality, that east and west, that thing I talk about with that sense of the Asian master, the guru. Part of the thing about Eric that I really liked was Eric didn't have a problem going to study with a teacher that he knew could help him and educate him. But at the same time, Eric Shipman's connection to Jiddu Krishnamurti was part of my original tie-in with him, and the concept of eschewing the guru altogether, that you are the teacher. So in a sense, what I'd been doing was kind of sharing my flaws and foibles with my students. So when I worked with my yoga students, I was lying on a golf ball, working around my hip to help myself with whatever I had done to my hip and my knee. But I was always very honest about the fact that, hey, I live in some clay. Like, this stuff breaks if you don't take care of it. We're not trying to cause injuries. Like, there was a certain authenticity that came with sharing my own very human experience of pushing too far and hurting myself. One of the things I have a big challenge with in the massage community is that concept of the teacher, the certification, the licensure that gives me permission to do whatever it is I'm doing. It's like they're constantly looking for somebody outside to give them permission to do good things in the world. It's like when I think of you, doing belly dance, who in the yoga community gave you permission to do belly dance?
Yeah, nobody.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But that concept of like looking for the teacher to teach me how to do something, or the teacher who gives me permission, or in a sense, the guru, to tell me what the truth is. I'm like, ooh, I really, that makes me so uncomfortable internally.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's an interesting thing too. I think, I always think about that. It's like such an interesting balance because I have such tremendous respect for my teachers. And also there's so much exploration that I'm doing myself, and there's so much of like I'm a product of all of my teachers, and so I don't feel like I have to be in alignment with a dogma. And I think that's the ideal way to do it, to integrate what you know and make it your own while honoring the best of what you've learned,
The way that you honor what your teachers have taught you is by destroying
it. Destroying it?
Well, and what I mean by that is, and I've had this happen in bodywork circles, because people, whether they understand it or not, they get into lineages and tradition. So if you do Ashtanga, do you do Iyengar yoga? And if you do Vini yoga, do you do Anusara yoga? You know what I mean? It's like they get into these little traditions, and the thing is, I have an uncanny knack of like searching around the bodywork community, picking up some tools and adding it into what I'm doing.
Right.
And the originators are like, no, you can't. And I'm like, leave me alone. You have to allow things to grow. You have to allow them to develop, to change. So just for an instance, and I think this will be an interesting tangent in our conversation. So I know that you're doing research related to what I would think of as like pain science, physiology, anatomy related to yoga. And it's like people almost act like Iyengar's alignment is holy text. It's sacred. You can't alter it in any way. And I'm like, Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting because I think this is like a tangent on the tangent. The very first teacher training that I did was Anusara Iyengar style. And so it was very dogmatic. And it was like, my job was to learn how my teacher said how to get into triangle pose and parrot it back exactly. And that is exactly how you do triangle pose. You don't bend your knee. You have to have your hand like this and not like that. Like, there was one way to do it, and I had to teach it that one way. And there is that really, I'm seeing like that same dogma in the like super safe, functional movement land. I'm like, if we're not careful, we're gonna get just as dogmatic about on that side of the spectrum, rather than the like, we're gonna be either dogmatic about aesthetics or gonna be dogmatic about this is what like the you know, anatomy manual says about this, without taking into account the individuality of people and seeing the person for a whole and what they need. So I don't know, like, and I like, it's funny because all of the things that I've done in some way have been in the Krishnamacharya lineage. So like, I did the Anusara Iyengar thing. I've done the Eric thing, who is with Iyengar and Desikachar, and now I've done the Vini Yoga thing, which is a Desikachar thing, and I've done Vinyasa, which is on the Patabi Joyce thing. And I'm like, well, I feel like they're all just like looking it's the same thing. Like, everybody's just looking at it a slightly different angle.
I personally, it's like in studying body work, in some ways, I feel like I've learned more about body work from yoga than I have from body work itself. And the more, like, I have people telling me, they're like, they'll look at my work from the outside, and I had a couple of students in particular who had some background with martial arts, and they said, "Man, you're doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You need to go check out Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and you're going to see you're putting people in soft joint locks." And it took a while for me to understand what they were saying, and then I would start to look at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu from the outside and go, And the thing is, it's like, but people don't think of that as body work. Does it make sense? There's something about these limited practices. Even the concept, like one is massage, one is yoga.
Right.
I have a fundamental issue with that distinction because I think it's the same thing. You're working with people, you're working with bodies, and you're working with the exact same anatomy and physiology. The real genius was blending these in a way and essentially trying to teach massage therapists elements of yoga to prolong their practice and help people with chronic issues. The same thing that was at the back of Light on Yoga. That was what I was interested in. Without surgery, without medications, does that help shoulder problems? Let's figure that out, and let's refine it, and let's keep going. Let's allow yoga and let's allow massage to develop, into the 21st and 22nd century. What does that look like? That's what I'm interested in. The history part, sure, I like hearing stories about Krishnamacharya. Krishnamacharya was just a limitation of his times.
Yeah, it's really interesting, because I think that there's so much there that already exists within yoga, and to be able to pull in what we've learned from science and medicine and other movement traditions, there's so much that can be incorporated into tools to help people feel better.
Yeah. It's interesting to me that the challenge that I see, and I don't talk to as many people in the general yoga community. How much are people in the yoga community looking at yoga as an energetic practice based on like Ayurveda and nadis and
Oh.
Your phone froze on my end. Let's see if it unfreezes. Oop, she got dropped. We'll see if she comes back. I should be able to re-add her. And here she comes.
Sorry.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, so I would say like nobody. And
Okay.
the reason for that is people don't know. I would say as a whole, the yoga scene is a product of these like 200-hour yoga teacher training factories, which is pretty much exclusively about the physical practice. I mean, there's like a little bit of philosophy in there, but it's mostly physical practice. And there are people, I think, people that have been around longer, who have been teaching and practicing for like decades, have the knowledge to address energetics and Ayurveda or whatever into their teaching. But I would say as a whole, it is not there.
Huh. Well, from the other end of the spectrum, again, I don't know as much about the yoga community. One of the things that happened to me was originally I was teaching Thai massage, and I continued to explore that practice, but the entire time I was studying Thai massage, applying Thai massage, I was also a Westerner trained in musculoskeletal anatomy, trained in, trigger point therapy, myofascial release, all this other bodywork stuff, and yoga. And I was mixing and matching and blending. And then what happened is, in the last 10 years or so, what I'm noticing is there's a backlash because there are Westerners like me having an effect on Thai massage who are teaching, and basically the backlash became traditional Thai massage and traditional Thai medical theory. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, you think sin lines are literal. You think energy lines flowing through the body and then loam, which is wind, is flowing through those. You don't take that as a metaphor. You take that literally. And they're like, yes, absolutely. This is Thai medical theory. If it's not Thai medical theory, it's not Thai. And I was like, guys, even if that's correct, that's 1,000 years old.
Right.
Like, that has nothing to do with, like, there was literally a conversation in a Thai medical theory discussion group. And someone came on and said somebody had a sinus infection, and what herbs should they use, for that sinus infection. And I wanted to reach through my computer and strangle someone and go, somebody has an infection next to their brain. I think we should apply antibiotics. Right. And then we should talk about what herbs might supplement that.
Yeah, right.
And that's where I just had a breaking point where Thai massage as my teacher died. And I was like, I cannot live in this little box anymore. They keep trying to confine me, and I keep trying to break all the boxes. In the same way that Krishnamurti would talk about love, and he'd say, well, what is love? Oh, it's not that. It's not that. It's not that. And through negation, he would essentially destroy that thing. And he's like, what is truth? And then he'd do the same thing, but he would never rebuild it. He was always pushing you outside of these, conceptions. And that's what I resonated so deeply with that. That's what I continue to do. But people keep looking at my work, and all they see is, well, is it myofascial release? Is it trigger point therapy? Is it pain science? Is it yoga? Is it acro yoga? Is it therapeutic flight? Is it aquatics? And it's like, why do you have to have a name for it? Yeah. Well, and the thing is, I understand that people do. They need a brand.
Yeah.
Coke, Nestle, Twitter, Facebook, they need a brand. But at the same time, I can see outside of that limitation. Does that make sense? Like, even choosing, because I said, okay, I'm doing these 3-hour sessions with a suspension system, advanced abdominal work. The client's clothed on the mat. It doesn't look like massage. It doesn't fit. In a regulation sense, it fits because I'm manipulating soft tissue. but it doesn't look like anything the consumer's ever seen in regards to massage. What is it? And I was like, it's a reboot. I reboot my clients. The sessions are 3 hours long. It's a reboot. It's a reboot. It's a reboot. Let's reboot our carpal tunnel. Let's reboot client sciatica. Let's reboot the massage industry. But within choosing that name, I needed a box. Within choosing that name, the very name reboot was my commitment to continued ongoing growth, where I refused to stop integrating new information. And that's where it gets to the point of like holy writ in scripture. And I'm like, no, the truth does not exist in a book.
It's always changing.
It doesn't, yeah. And it's such a, you know, that's where I joked about Star Wars. It's like the Force, right? It's like between us, but we can't control it. Right. It's not owned by the Jedi. It's that retelling of myth. The ongoing commitment, even when I studied with, you know, Eric, just hearing Eric tell stories and say, you know, this esteemed yoga teacher who said, yeah, the practice just fell apart after a while. And he thought it was broken.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't working. It didn't do anything for him anymore. It was just going through the motions because the physical practice had done what it was supposed to do. He had achieved a new level of some sort. And it was like it took him time to give himself permission to be able to continue that process and understand that was part of it. The practice, much like you said, even if it's physical, it changes.
Yeah.
And how do we give them a foundation to grow while at the same time allowing improvisation?
Yeah, and I think that for anything, we need both. You have to start with something because people are not going to be able to get into that intuitive place with no foundation. You have to like lay down something to start with. But then you have to get away from that at some point. You have to do something bigger.
And that's why I think as a body worker, it's why I'm always recommending students go take yoga classes. Or something movement based. Yeah. Martial arts, dance, belly dance, Pilates, some other movement based practice to make them look at the body from a different viewpoint.
Yeah, for sure. And even in yoga classes, like if all you do is yoga, that is not, if all you ever take is a vinyasa class, it's not going to be a holistic practice for your body. Try weightlifting, try running, take a bar class, try a different kind of yoga class, take a hike, like do something to get a whole perspective of what's going on. And just like the yoga it's like a touchstone that you can go back to and you can continue to adapt. Yeah.
Patricia Walden, I've seen Patricia Walden talk about certain standing yoga poses and say they were friends for life. And the thing is, the physical practice of doing a forward bend, if you do it well, the pose is different every time you do it. And that's what's so hard because it's like you're using a physical practice to push people beyond the physical. It's like it's such a weird, like, you know, what is the sound of one hand clapping? It's like a Zen cone after a while.
It's like it's a puzzle to really find out how to do it. And I don't know that. I feel like maybe Eric is the only person that does it well.
Yeah, it's. I don't know. I love the physical part. One of the quotes of a Iyengar that I've included in a lot of my materials. I'll tell this story in class about Iyengar being questioned because his yoga was too physical. I've heard this story, whether or not it's true. And he was questioned at a conference. Your yoga's too physical. Your yoga's too physical. A guy took the microphone and criticized Iyengar in front of everybody because his yoga is physical, and all of Iyengar's students ducked. Because the Iyengar was going to come and beat the guy up. And the Iyengar picked up the microphone and said, listen, when you sit in a chair, do you sit with your body, your mind, or your spirit? And then put the mic back. And I'm like, yep, because you don't understand his teaching. It's like the teaching is physical because that's what he can get a handle on.
Yeah.
And that's the piece that I go back to, not only as a yoga teacher, but as a body worker. That's always the handle. Like, I've seen research studies and had another well-known educator talk about this. The number one predictor of outcomes, if you come see me for a session of body work, the number one predictor of outcomes is how you feel about me.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just started doing the ACE personal training book right now, and that's the thing that they say in that handbook too. When you're meeting with a personal trainer, the predictor is what is the first impression you make? How does your client feel at the end? What is the thing that Gary Kraftstall likes to say? He says something like, "I've never met a person without a hamstring, and a hamstring that's not attached to a liver, and like a liver that doesn't have a mother." And so it's like, you know, you have a person and you have their body to work with, you have the energetics of what they're working with, and then you also have like their emotional and spiritual condition. It's all connected, and it's you know, how do you negotiate that? It's a challenge for sure.
How can I be in a class and I'm teaching body workers how to do some of the work I do, and they're working on you, and they raise their hand and they say, well, what do I do next? And I go, I don't know. What does Flissy want? And they're like, like, why are you looking to me?
Yeah.
Like, you're engaged in this extremely intimate physical interaction with someone. What do they want? It's their body. Mm-hmm. There is no in body work. There is no sequence for you other than the connection you form with the therapist you're working with, and how willing that therapist is to let go of their routine and allow your body and your being to manifest in session. Mm-hmm. And here's the thing, if you get a session with me every day of the week, the sessions are all going to be slightly different.
Mm-hmm. And that's the way it ought to be. But I think that is really like, that's like, of course it should be. But I think, you know, for many practitioners of body work, and I think for yoga too, like people are just, they're hung up. Like they're hung up on the dogma or the taught sequence, or they've been given a structure for something, but not an understanding of the why behind it. And I think that's something that's really lacking in yoga training, is that there is, you know, you're taught how to do script, or you're taught like, this is the format of this particular class. And if it's a good training, you might know why that structure exists. But if it's not, you might have no clue. And to design a practice on your own, I think people don't have any idea of where to start with that.
And it is an interesting thing, because I think we're getting to that point where when Eric calls what he does freedom yoga, he's talking about, you know, being outside of a sequence and getting to a point of improvisation as life. And there's so many implications to that very deeply resonate for me. But what's the foundation you give the student to be able to safely allow them to build, mm-hmm. you know, their practice on? And I'm still refining that as a teacher. Like, why do I set it up that way? And I'm committed again to like that continued process of growth, development, change. I'm mm-hmm. willing to question myself, but I keep telling students, I feel a little bit like, I use a lot of references towards music. I feel like a jazz musician. And what I'm doing is I'm going in and teaching the students scales. And they're like, no, but we want to play jazz. And I'm like, okay, you've learned to play scales. Now, go listen to Coltrane. Like, I can't, you know, you're a tool. So like from a yoga perspective, you know, your body, your hip structure, alignment, pelvic floor strength, all of that is different than mine. You're female, I'm male. If you teach me your practice, I'm only going to be able to emulate it so much. You have a different tool.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it's like it gets to this point where the practice can't be so systematic where it's like perfect for every person.
Exactly.
There's got to be. Yeah.
I'm like, yes, it should be different for everyone. Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially if you're working one-on-one with somebody, it absolutely will be unique to that particular client. Yeah.
Yeah. So Dax was asking earlier about what kind of yoga you should do if you're interested in belly dance.
Oh,
Can you
Vinny yoga.
speak to that? Vinny yoga specifically?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what's available here in Austin. I haven't gone digging through the local community to find out what's available. I know there's one Iyengar studio that's still dedicated to that. Vinny yoga, there are a couple of Ashtanga teachers I know of. Vinny yoga I haven't heard as much about.
There really is not a ton of us. Like, I think there are Vinny yoga teachers that are kind of peppered all over the country, but it's definitely like, there's just less of us. It is not a cool form of yoga. It is not.
So
it is not glamorous.
Vinny yoga, with Vinny yoga, why that for belly dance specifically?
So it is like the movement of Vinny yoga, all of the moving that you do in that practice is generated by the breath. So it's like, I think a lot of times in a vinyasa class, like it's inhale, do this, exhale, do that. And it's kind of, the movement is running parallel to the breath. But in Vinny yoga, you're really using like the natural biomechanics of breathing to facilitate movement. And so that method is really good for really like neuromuscularly reconditioning yourself. So you start to move in a more functional way. And because you're using your breath, it's focused on moving the spine and the things attached to the spine, the hips and shoulders, and all of those are the joints that get the most stress for dancers. Yeah. So especially low back, SI joint, hips, that is where we get the most wear and tear. And that, I think Vinny yoga, the postures and patterns and sequences for Vinny yoga, just the work around that area is just the best structurally.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, I will consider you the expert. It's like, I don't know anyone in the world I could contact and go, what's the best body work for belly dance? Or, what's the best yoga for belly dance? Other than you.
And my teacher is Rachel Bryce, and she's also a Vinny yoga teacher. So that's where I learned it from, that connection. Yeah.
Nice. I noticed recently, I've seen more social media posts from you. You currently, through your website, are you offering like individualized, like Skype training, like online training for yoga?
Not yet for teachers, but for practitioners. One of the things that I offer is practice consultations. And so it's an hour-long Skype session, and we talk a little bit about what your goals are for yoga, what you might want to get out of a regular practice. And then we sit down and figure out a 20 or 30-minute sequence of poses that you can do on your own. So it would be a practice that you could do for whatever purpose, 2 or 3 or 4 times a week. Pretty short, like a 20 or 30-minute practice. And I draw up stick figures and send it off as a PDF, and then follow up 2 weeks later and see how it's going, and we can make adjustments if we need to. Yeah. And that's like really like what I want to do as a yoga teacher is eventually be obsolete as a yoga teacher. Like, I want to get people started on doing their own practice and have the knowledge and the curiosity to develop it on their own. So I'm here to help people develop their own yoga practices, and hopefully like they'll learn enough they don't need me anymore. So not probably the best, like, financially.
No. Okay, now.
But,
So
obsolete yoga teacher.
There are some, I don't want to disparage other physical practices within the medical realm. I don't want to disparage, and I won't even mention what they are, but there are some things that are set up to be a revolving door.
Oh yeah.
How do we keep them coming back? And my entire model was like, listen, if I can give you 2 or 3 sessions, maybe get you to maintenance, and you have like a drastic improvement in the amount of pain you experience, you write a great review, you send all your friends, your family, your loved ones with back pain, there's more than enough pain in the world, for me to continue to address without having to work with the same person again and again and again.
Yeah.
I think it's a different business model, and there's a weird thing that happens because other than the physical practices of bodywork and yoga, I've spent the last years working on business. And business is the one that's killing me slowly.
It's the worst, right?
Well, it's a harsh teacher. It's a really harsh teacher.
Yeah.
It's more brutal in a way than the other two. And there are certain illusions that come up, and one of those deals with scarcity. There's not enough students. And I know yoga teachers deal with this constantly. There's not enough students. There's not enough students. I feel like, and you can tell me if this is the case, massage therapists, let's say 5% of the US population gets a regular massage other than a gift certificate, for the holidays, Mother's Day, whatever. The massage therapists feel like they're competing for this 5% instead of marketing to the other 95% of the population.
Mm-hmm.
It's about creating new yoga students.
Right, yeah.
It's not about, well, okay, I used to study Vinaya yoga, now I'm studying Bikram yoga, now I'm studying, it's not about competing for that 5%. It's about going after the other 95%. The scarcity thing doesn't exist.
For sure, yeah.
There's an illusion there.
Yeah. It's even worse in the belly dance realm. Like, seriously, like, we are all trading each other's students endlessly. Like, that is just that is the belly dance scene where you're all like just passing each other's money around.
Well, I mean, but that's where you develop something new by
Right,
mixing, matching, and blending. I can't imagine that your belly dance classes resemble other teachers just because of the other physical training and disciplines that you've studied.
Yeah, they're different. And everybody's different, and that's a great thing. Because somebody will come to my class and they might not be into it at all, but there's same studio Thursday night, somebody else is teaching something completely different. So there's enough to go around. Yeah.
Trying to think of other interesting tidbits to throw out. Because I'm assuming that, well, in other words, I don't know anything about the business of belly dance.
I am slowly learning myself. And I think like all of these things like massage realm, belly dance, yoga, at least like the current business scene is really like so much cult of personality. Like you are an individual, but you are also a brand. And the thing that I am selling, whether it's yoga or belly dance, it is I am selling me. It's the me show. So, and that is like such a weird thing to do. And it takes practice to develop it and get comfortable.
Massage therapists are the ones that I deal with, and they have a very hard time understanding. If I talk about brand, they don't understand that. And I'm like, listen, and I'm begging them to understand. Please understand me, massage therapists. You are the brand.
Yeah.
Flissy.
That's what, like, if I'm getting massage, it's not like I want to get a massage with any random person. Like, I'm going to see you because I have a relationship with you.
Yes.
And you get to know my body and my conditions. And it's so, it's important.
And that's why, as a yoga teacher, I have to draw students who understand that I drink and I'm often angry. And that's part of my marketing shtick, you know? I'm the guy who's gonna drink some whiskey and quote Ramana Maharshi. Okay, it just is. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And the sooner you accept, pieces of that and learn how to package it, the better you'll do. Dax had conversations with me about connecting to her specific target market, and she's trying to figure that out. And she talked about as a massage therapist working with a roller derby or
Oh, that's
roller derby
awesome.
girls. And I was like, whoa, that's like an amazing niche.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's like that. I would never think to like go to roller derby and work on those people as my clients specifically, but that's the sort of thinking you have to do. That's the sort of marketing that Facebook Live and social media allows. It's like from a personalized branding perspective, there's more opportunity to stand out, and it's easier to do than at any time in history.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate because I think that there's a lot of yoga teachers that have a lot to offer. They have a lot of knowledge, and I don't think they're fully taking advantage of the opportunity to share what they know on social media. And I think that a lot of valuable knowledge is being lost that way because people are connecting with the whoever is on social media that seems interesting and cool. And maybe that is like, it is interesting and cool, and there is knowledge there. But I think that there's also a lot of rich information that is getting lost because I don't know, like Vini yoga, there's, like I mentioned, there's not a lot of this because I have to kind of work to make it cool. Like it's generally like a gentle kind of practice, and it's not glamorous. Like there's a lot of like breathing and sitting and meditate, like all that stuff. It does not look cool on Instagram to like, I did my practice, here I am in child's pose. Like it's hard to make that stuff interesting. I'm still figuring it out. I think I'm cool.
I think what you do, and this is hard. I have conversations with my wife about this regularly because of massage and yoga really reduces stress, right? The reason I got into the practices is because I needed stress reduction. And then I'm working on business in selling stress reduction and causing stress. So I'm working with these dissonant, things that are just part of life.
Yeah.
But it's like what I fundamentally am still working with is figuring out the yoga of business. And there's a piece of it where you're communicating and conveying certain desires to your target. And Instagram to me is like a classic. I mean, oh man, Instagram yoga. Oh, you laugh. Because you notice, it's like, how does this person, it's like, oh, well, they're wearing next to no clothes. She's inordinately attractive. She's got to be 25 years old. It's like, that's why she has 3,000 likes on her post. Whereas your child's post. But it's trying to figure out how do you maintain authenticity and still communicate, let's say Vini yoga in this instance, in a way that taps into people's baser drives and desires. Because that's what marketing is.
Yeah.
And I think that it's possible. It just really takes being a river stone and having your rough edges worn off. And that process really involves, and this is what's challenging for people to understand, I wish if I knew the secret, I would sell it to you. I would happily have you run your credit card and sell you the information.
But then, it's like, it's such an individual thing, like everything else. Like, yeah.
What you do is make a lot of mistakes.
Oh, I'm good
and you
at
use social media to continue making mistakes and continue making videos and figure out, what do people like? What do they not like? And the thing is, the way you find out what people like isn't just by shooting one successful video. It's by shooting thousands of horrible videos and then noticing, oh wait, they paid more attention, and then you go that direction. And that process, for me personally, is very, like, there's some internal dissonance about it. There's some internal, like, angst, if you will, because I want it to be quick and easy.
Don't we all? Yeah.
And the thing is, it's like, I keep telling people, listen, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
I think that's where a lot of people give up in the business side of things and the marketing side of things. They'll just throw one thing out every 2 months or 6 months and like, oh, this one ad, it didn't work. Or I sent an email and nobody came to my class. I'm like, well, you can't just do one. You have to do it so much. And I'm still, I'm in that right now. I'm in the making videos and bombing realm right now. So, but that's all right. Like, I'm really looking forward to what I'm going to be learning next. I feel like this is I'm in a good learning mode right now.
The paradox of enjoying the process and then striving to get somewhere. I'm still trying to figure out the real flow for how that works, because what happens is I wind up leaning too heavily on this and wanting it to be some way that it's not. And I don't really know how to process that, but it's like you almost get to the point where it's like, okay, I need to make more money so I can hire a business coach and then a psychotherapist to help me understand my inner workings to build a business doing what I have heart resonance for.
Yeah, I hired a business coach at the beginning of last year, and it's awesome. Like, it's a huge help. So do you feel like you have kind of figured out the big picture of what you are teaching and sharing, and now you're working on the logistics of it? Or do you feel like you're still like refining what it is that you're doing?
I feel like I'm fumbling along and trying to piece it together in a way that people can understand, pick up, and use. So I'll give you a quick example. I had a young lady call me earlier, and at first, when I answered the phone, I was like, telemarketer, I don't recognize this number. And we know how we feel about telemarketers interrupting us, right? And she said, is this a good time to talk? And I said, oh, yeah, no, okay. It's about a class. You're not a telemarketer, I'm sorry. I thought. And the young lady said, hey, I want to get a certification in Thai massage. And then proceeded to, start going. And it's like, I had to sit back for a second and go, okay, I wanted to ask, what is Thai massage? And then I wanted to ask, what do you think a certification is? What she's asking me is, can I get credit in Georgia for the class that I would take from you? And then I have to ask a regulatory conversation, which is, does the state of Georgia have different laws than Texas? You see what I mean? It's like layers of infrastructure and red tape, because if I just give people the information I have, it causes confusion, because people are like, who is this for? And I say, humanity. It's for humanity. And the thing is, there's this ongoing battle, in a sense, if you will, for the hearts and minds. And the two things that I butt up against, Flissy, I'd like some feedback from you on this, is massage therapists basically want to own touch. So it is not illegal for me to teach classes to anyone who wants to learn. But technically, depending on how you interpret state law, the only people who can provide touch as a service, unless they're a physical therapist, occupational therapist, dentist, doctor, nurse, are massage therapists. I had a class years ago in Dallas. There were 3 yoga teachers and 5 massage therapists who literally got into the beginnings of a verbal altercation in my class, because the massage therapists say, we own this. You cannot legally, do this. And I go, wait. Can they do yoga therapy? Can they do Thai yoga? Can they do hands-on assists and adjustments? And they're like, hey, that's not, and I'm like, listen, I don't have time, because here's the thing. We're not just talking about one state. We're talking about 50 states who all have different laws. And anywhere I go, I've got like yoga teachers, Pilates instructors, dancers, CrossFitters, people who want to study what I'm doing. And the massage therapists, in my experience, what I'm doing is disparate enough from what they think of as massage that they don't know it's for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like, I don't even know
So
where to start with the quagmire of like
yeah.
licensing.
Well, it's like because then we
yeah.
get to have conversations about the Yoga Alliance.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
Exactly. And the thing is, that's the thing. The massage therapists don't understand that I bridge these two, and I see the arguments over here, and I'm like, ugh. Can I just teach people how to work on people and make them feel better?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to. Yeah. So I feel like very much I'm still refining what I do. And the other portion is I have a very hard time standardizing it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I understand that as I continue to study, I'm going to learn new things. When I come up and take a class with you and you're teaching me Vini Yoga, and then you're teaching me elements of belly dance, I'm going to wind up incorporating pieces of that into what I do. That is my natural, I think, gift as a syncretist.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that it keeps changing, what I decided to do was let impermanence just be impermanence. Just document the process, record everything, and continue to let it grow and evolve and let people pick it up as they do and as they can. The long-term challenge is, for me, is not an art issue, it's a marketing issue. Is figuring out who's the target. Who are the real people that want this transformational body work, and who can I work with consistently? Because when I go teach in Costa Rica, I don't know if Costa Rica has massage laws. Because I'm in Texas, I'm like, listen, let's do this. Let's find out where international waters are, and let's put a boat there. And you come, and anybody on Earth can come and study. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Seems like a good plan. Cruise ship. Caribbean, Thai, reboot, retreat. Sounds good to me.
Yeah. So when you were asking if I was still trying to figure it out, like what I'm teaching?
Yeah.
I mean, I think I've got pieces. I think there's a core to get people started with. I think some of the confusion is they don't really understand at what point Thai massage turned into reboot. Some people think it's like a kind of a weird bait and switch, but when they study with me, they realize, oh, he took the biomechanics of mat-based bodywork, changed the theory, and applied myofascial release, trigger point therapy, yoga, breathing exercises, self-massage in like a new way we'd never seen. But the thing is, you kind of have to dig into the work to get to that point. At first, it still just looks like Thai massage. Does it make sense?
Yeah,
From the outside?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So my main challenge is the marketing component. It's not the art. The art is already there. I can teach it to people, get them started. The bigger piece is like, who is it for? Who is it? The work that I'm teaching, who is it for? When I talk to massage therapists, it's a little more challenging because the students either need to be where I am locally, very small numbers who are interested, and then that's why we kept pushing everything online, because I felt like I had to reach out to a broader audience to let those students come and find me.
So would you say that the work that you're doing right now is focused more on teaching practitioners to do the work that you're doing, or to work one-on-one with clients for body work, or both?
It's transitioned in the last year to being more about education. That's really what we're pushing towards. The real reason that I went that direction is I'm always going to continue to see clients. I love working with clients and helping them, but to be able to work with enough people, the only way I could allow the art to spread was by teaching other practitioners.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, like, one of the things that I'm seeing is, like, I would really like to see, like, just the general standard of yoga teaching be elevated. So I think it's not in a great place right now. I think we could do a lot better. And so, like, right now I'm working with students, but eventually I want to be working more to help develop teachers too. So I think, we could just do better on many levels.
And what I see from the outside when you say that is there are a lot of massage therapists who see that same issue and they want to complain about regulation.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And I go, no, 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 no. The issue isn't complaining about regulation. The issue is building a better business and solving that problem by selling them the solution.
Yeah.
That's what you have to do.
Yeah, and I think that's the same thing in yoga world. Like, I think people are like, oh, like quality of yoga teachers is terrible. People get these certifications in one weekend or whatever, and there's all these bad yoga teachers because the standards are low. I'm like, no, it's not. Like, everybody has to be elevated. It's not one piece of paper that's going to fix that. It's like elevating the whole community is what's going to elevate everything.
I want to say something cliched, like be the change you want to see in the world.
It's a little bit of that. A little bit of that.
Yeah. I think it's imperative that we as artists just continue to allow things to grow. And increasingly, I stop looking for outside authorities to give me permission to create a better world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that is not always an easy thing to do. Like, if, I think, it can be a couple things. Like, I think sometimes people are limited by their knowledge, that they feel like they only have like this much to work with. And so they better just stick with that because that's what they know. And I think it's also hard, if you have if you're really connected with a teaching to hold on to it, but also be able to integrate other things and be open to other things, so that you can continue to learn. Like, I think honoring a tradition is not exclusive to taking in new information. I think that's where some people hit a block, is that they're so stuck in tradition that they're blind to what else helpful is out there.
Ooh. I just want, I want to jump up and down and go, yay, exactly. But it's the traditional Thai massage community. That was the thing. It basically took, it took something I loved and started to destroy it slowly. And I remember being in yoga class one day. I have 3 very regular students who come to my home studio and do practice with me on Wednesday nights. And we were sitting around one day, and I had done so much to alter what I think of as Thai massage that I was in the middle of that rebrand towards reboot. And I remember sitting down with my yoga students, and as we were practicing, we were laying on foam rolls and like mobilizing our arms and working on things. And I said, guys, how would you feel if I stopped calling this a yoga class? Like, if I called it something other than yoga? And they asked a couple questions. And they said, are we still going to do the same stuff we've been doing? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, great, yeah.
But, it's like from the outside, like traditional practitioners look at it as like the hubris of someone of like altering, our sacred text, of altering our holy tradition. And I don't know what to do with that. I don't live in a traditional box. I have, I grew up in Louisiana, and I tell people this, I'm Scott-Irish by ancestry. I burn if I'm in the sun for more than 15 minutes, and I feel black. I grew up in South Louisiana where gumbo, boudin, jazz, funk is part of my culture. And it's like jazz music did not come about in isolation. It's like, is it European? Is it African? Is it Caribbean? Is it American? It's something new. And that's a weird thing when it comes to like, traditions, like things evolve and grow. That duality between tradition and evolution. Yeah.
And it is so funny, I think, especially in yoga world, because it's not a linear thing. Like, even in the traditional traditions, there's so much that was like brought in from the West and from medicine and from, oh, hey, look at gymnastics. Like, yeah. There's so much that has been brought in over the years that even tradition is not a fixed thing. Yeah.
Yeah. In Thailand right now, there's a wonderful teacher who maybe I'll get to study with one day named Pishet Buntum. He's the reigning like master in Thailand. Mm-hmm. So kind of like on the lines of like a Yengar. I think of it in that way in Thai massage terms. A friend and colleague is there studying, has studied in Thailand several times. And when he talks about Pishet and the things that he sees in class, you know, I couldn't help think about the fact that people from all around the world are going to study with Pishet. And then Pishet is asking them questions about what they are doing because Pishet is learning things from Europeans. And it's like, and Pishet, to me, he's not really fundamentally interested in what people think of as traditional Thai massage. Mm-hmm. He's interested in the most effective body work he can learn to be able to disseminate amongst his students. Mm-hmm. Those are two different things.
Yeah.
If you're, like, defending tradition is a defensive move. Evolving and growing is an offensive move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I don't know if it is, it sounds like maybe this is the case in Thai realm too, where people like reverse engineer it and like put like old philosophy in there like as an afterthought. Because I think like there's stuff in yoga realm that's like new age spirituality and like reworking some chakras stuff that is like, it seems like it's old, but it's like mythology, and it just it's put in there as if it is old tradition, and it's just like, it's just made up.
See, it's like these dualistic, the conversations are only good when it circles around.
Yeah.
Back to the beginning. And it's like Joseph Campbell, comparative mythology, the hero with 1,000 faces. I've got a little picture of Jesus, the Sacred Heart of Jesus, the Catholic Jesus on my wall. And he's because it's not a printed like photo. It's like a little icon, little Catholic thing. And it's sitting in a different spot from my teacher's wall, and people would come in and say, hey, you know, like, what's with the Jesus? And I'm like, oh, that's my teacher's wall. And they're like, well, but the other guys are like real guys. They're pictures, you know, Jesus. And I'm like, guys, well, like, what? I'm not worshiping Gandhi the guy. I'm worshiping Gandhi the myth. You know, it's like, how do I explain like that sort of resonance when people see the glowing heart of Jesus and I say, yeah, that's the heart chakra. The halo is the crown chakra.
Right.
And they go, no, that's not the same thing. And I go, okay.
Yeah, right. It's like there's a reason why maybe there's so much iconography that is like global. Yeah. There is something to all of these things. There's something to the body work. There's something to the yoga. There's something to martial arts. Like, it is all, we're all looking at one thing. And I think like people lose sight of that. They get so fixated on their one pointed view of it. And like, we're all looking at the same thing. Like, it's okay. You keep doing you. It's fine.
Yeah. It's, I don't know how to, I don't even know how to explain it past a certain point. Yeah. It's almost like you understand it, or I have to be silent about it, because having conversations about it winds up being debate.
Yeah, it's like I just better not step in this. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, all I can say is I've been influenced by my teachers. And here's the thing, you know, Martin Luther King Jr. is on my teacher's wall, but so is George Carlin. He's a different teacher. You know, it's like, if it doesn't resonate for you, it's cool.
Yeah.
So people can find you on your website. Can you give them a little bit of like your social media information and how they can contact you?
I am Omchantress, OMCHANTRES, Omchantress on all of the things. So omchantress.com, Omchantress on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. I'm on all the things.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And cool. If you sign up for my newsletter on my website, you can get free video about yoga to relax, and I'll send out occasional more videos and sequences and stuff for people.
Cool. Yeah, this conversation was really nice. We'll have to talk and try to figure out what we want to schedule in the future and maybe go into more detail about specific topics that might be of interest. I'm tired.
Yeah, yeah, that's a
A
good
long
talk
day.
though. We went feel like we went a long time and we could go a lot longer.
Oh, no, no, there's tons to like ferret out like across the board as far as body related disciplines. So listen, thank you so much for the interview today, and I hope to talk to you soon. I'll go ahead and chat with you after we shut this down.
Okay, that sounds good. Thanks everybody for joining us, and thanks for chatting with me.
Yeah,
Bye.
you have a great day. Thank you.